So the trip is to get, well, as a whole, it's a reporting trip. So we have students here working with the deans of the school to tell a story about in Cuba. So this year's story is finding different Afro-Cuban artists and see how they reflect and influence their communities. So we've talked to several different Afro-Cuban artists, singers, what's it called? Painters or poets. We've talked to different people and just trying to see like, what is life for an Afro-Cuban here and how does your work influence your community? And just kind of putting that together, seeing Cuba through their eyes and trying to tell that story through art.
I know that's the focus of the story, but in their answers, did you get a sense that they are really having an impact, a positive impact on the culture at home, especially for Afro-Cubans, or no? And if yes, tell me why, and if not, tell me why not, based on your experience with them.
The one that stood out to me most was Choco. I think mostly because I asked him why. I mean, his pieces are pretty expensive, and so I asked him, how are you touching your community for people that can't afford this? Most of Cuba, I mean, cannot afford to buy your pieces, so how are you touching them? And he told me that he would give his art away to hospitals, breast cancer patients, just, I think that everybody has a different interpretation of art and it speaks to them. So I think that, you know, having a piece of art that was meant for you or you got a message out of that, it can change somebody. So I think that that artist stuck out to me the most. I think that was a huge impact on the community.
So I do have to ask you, when I heard the question come out of your mouth, I thought it was very bold. How did you feel asking that question? Because that could have been interpreted in an entirely different way by the artist.
Well,
basically,
leading up,
what you were saying was, you're making all this money, but how do the poor people access your art and how they
Right,
yes.
right. So I wanted to know. So I think his answer was pretty good. I don't think that, and what stuck out to me was that he wasn't afraid to answer it. He didn't think about it and say, like, why would you ask me that? He said, I understand that, but I have to eat at the end of the day. I mean, I'm creating art, and I know my art is beautiful, and I have to eat. I have people working with me. I have a team, and we have to sell it. But he did say he does donate. He does do fairs where he sells them for a cheaper price than what he would sell them for normally. But I just asked it. I didn't feel any way about asking it. If you don't ask, you won't get an answer. I think that's lazy journalism if you don't ask the question.
So what did you learn most about yourself during this whole experience?
It's funny. I learned that Dean Wickham said it earlier. Sometimes you go to it's not a plan A, a plan B, you'll go all the way to plan K, he said. And there was a lot of that this trip, and I realized that you do have to be a little patient. You're working with different people in a different environment, and learning about myself. You just have to kind of just stay true to yourself and really just, you know, push through and just to get the job done. So I realized that under pressure, I've always known under pressure that I do work well, but this time I really know.
And going back, what specific skills are you going to apply? Is this a skill, or are there some different skills? In other words, what I'm asking is, now that you've had this experience, how is this going to make you more competitive than you were before you got on the plane to come here, professionally?
I could work under fire. It's literally probably 80 degrees out here. We've been running 7 days straight, and the job has to be done. We haven't really had much time to explore Cuba for ourselves, but we're here to work. And we can complain about it all day, but to someone else who hasn't had this experience, I know how to work under pressure. I know how to work in an environment that isn't I don't want to say the best environment, but not the, what's the word? You can, calls that right. Yeah. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not the ideal environment. It's not going to be all peaches and cream all the time. So I know how to work under fire. I mean, you do it more so in school as well, but this felt real, like you were actually like in the field. So I know I can take that away.
There were three sort of basic themes that we were hoping that students would grasp hold to as part of the trip. One is diversity. What have you learned about diversity? First of all, what does diversity mean to you, and how have you been exposed to it? What have you learned about diversity on this trip?
Diversity. Well, as far as Cuba is concerned, when I came here, I thought that, I don't want to say that, I guess I was a little naive. I thought that everybody would kind of be like the same shade. I knew in every place you're going to have more darker skin than, fairer skin, but there's literally an Afro-Cuban and a white Cuban. So I think that that's diverse. They're all under one sector. They're all Cuban, yes, but they are different. And it's all under one culture. They're still Cubans, but they're still diverse. They have the same culture, but they have different, I don't want to just say skin tones, but they have different past, I'll say. Some are descendants from slaves and some aren't. Just like we're diverse in America, where we're all American, but you have some Asian American, some white American, some African American. It's the same here. And I think that was pretty cool. I learned that they're all Cuban, they all have the same culture, but they all have different backgrounds and skin tones just like us. So I think that was pretty cool.
Make a pitch to your colleagues at Morgan. We have a lot of students who travel, so they travel for fun and they go to see places and they go out of the country and those types of things as well. But certainly there's a different experience from just traveling for the sake of traveling and traveling for an education or study abroad. Make the pitch to your colleagues back at Morgan why they should participate in these types of experiences before graduating. Getting out of the country, learning stuff, that kind of thing.
Well, for one, you're in a different country, so that's cool. But I think putting yourself in a situation where you're blind to the culture, you're blind to the language, you're kind of in a new environment, kind of forces you to put your best foot forward, and it's almost like, I don't want to say like it forces you to swim when you're sinking, but it kind of does. You don't know the language, you don't know the culture, but you're here for a job. So it like forces you to put your best work forward. I don't know how to articulate it really.
Okay, and final question. On a scale of A, B, and C, give yourself a grade and tell me why. Your performance on the trip.
I would give myself a B-. Deadline is everything. And if my professors are watching this and they said deadline is everything, then I should have failed. But I'm just going to give myself a B-. But deadline is everything, and I did the best that I could with working with what I had and materials that we had here. But you still have to meet the deadline. And I would have liked to put my packages in a little earlier than before, but as far as like shooting and being attentive and interviewing and asking questions, I feel like I was on it. Getting good shots on my phone and just being aware, I think all of that I did a pretty good job in.